Matter of fact, his life might be over. Let's see what's going on with that. Oh, wait. This is new.
It's being reported now that the investigation into the death of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez has taken a major step. Allegedly, a grand jury has been impaneled in this case, but not any grand jury, a special one. We're going to dig into whether or not this is possible, what it could mean for potential charges, suspects, and how this is all centered right now on singer David. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Because this time, after TMZ reported that LAPD told them that there were no arrests that are imminent in connection with the...
Yo, what the fuck? This shit came out yesterday. What? Oh, she looked mad young. That's the crazy part. She looked mad young. Bro. Alright, I'm not gonna talk for a little bit of it, and then I'm gonna give y'all my shared opinion on it after a while.
14-year-old's death and disposal of her body. Remember, her corpse was found back on September 8th in a Tesla reportedly registered.
I'm sorry, but that's just crazy. Like, she was just in a Tesla car that was owned by David. That's the crazy part. And he just left it there. I don't know if he had help or he did it by himself, but I don't know what the case is. Like, that's just scary to think about. Your daughter's missing, you worry sick for her, and then next minute you know she's just in his car by some guy she was hanging out with, coincidentally a rapper. It's just a fucked up situation to be in. Prayers go out to the family. It's crazy.
Registered to singer David out in LA. Now it's being reported that according to the LA Times, law enforcement sources say evidence has been presented to a grand jury already. Now, it's an investigative grand jury, to be more precise. We're going to talk about what that is because it's our understanding they can't return an indictment, right? So we're not talking about formal charges just yet, but an investigative grand jury certainly plays a key role in certain criminal cases. We'll explain it. Now, to be clear, right now, there have been no arrests in connection with Celeste's death in any way. David has not officially been implicated in any crime. There is reporting that he is potentially a suspect. But according to reporting from the LA Times and LA Magazine, this prosecution team in front of this purported grand jury is being led by Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman. That this is a case where they've potentially had several witnesses who have already testified in front of this grand jury, that this may be a grand jury that has been impaneled since mid-November. We don't even know, by the way, if this is all true, if it's still meeting. We don't even know if evidence is still being presented and gathered in front of this grand jury. The reason the LA Times apparently is reporting this is because they say they got a hold of a court filing, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, that makes reference to a grand jury number. And look, obviously, neither the district attorney's office nor the LAPD is going to outright confirm this, given the secretive nature of grand jury proceedings. But it's interesting when you think about what Nathan Hochman, the Los Angeles County District Attorney, said just last month. Quote, "The police have not presented the case to our office, so at this point I don't anticipate one way or another whether or not charges will be filed." Telling the truth, did things change? And this comes on the heels of a lot of developments from last week, which we talked about on Sidebar. The back and forth in this is, you get whiplash. It came out that sources close to the investigation told TMZ that Celeste's body was frozen, that it had actually been thawing.
Wait, what? I didn't know that part. I heard something like the body was decomposing. That's what I heard. Wait, did he say frozen or decomposing? I don't know what he said. Wait, give it.
Charges will be filed. Telling the truth, did things change? And this comes on the heels of a lot of developments from last week, which we talked about on Sidebar. The back and forth in this is, you get whiplash. It came out that sources close to the investigation told TMZ that Celeste's body was frozen, that it had actually been thawing out. What?
He said frozen. Wait, what? Can a body just wait? I need to see something. Wait, what? Then how was it frozen? Wait, am I bugging? Like, I don't wait. What? Like, did he freeze it? No, I need to listen. Now I dead ass need to listen because now I'm getting deep into the case. Cause bro, I really want to figure out what's going on. Cause how do I?
When it was found in that tow yard that she had been decapitated, that her limbs had been severed.
Decapitated? What? Yo, like, yo, I don't know if y'all. Like, can y'all see? Like, bro, I dead ass got goosebumps, man. Yo, I dead ass got goosebumps. Yo, that shit just gave me chills. What do you decapitate? Like, yo, y'all gotta really put it in perspective. Like, real life shit. This happened in real life. Somebody head got severed. And they still haven't put that nigga in jail, at least in custody. Like, legally, I don't think they could just keep him in custody for no reason, but it was in his car. That's not a big enough reason. Like, I don't know how the system work, but I'm I'm still surprised like he's not in jail by now. Like, is the body not being in his car enough evidence for him to get placed in custody or be arrested until proven innocent? Like, what? They did raid his house. They did raid his house. I seen that. Bro. And I was bumping his shit. I ain't even, nah, I can't play a song no more. I ain't gonna lie, chat.
And cut into pieces, and whether this is complicated knowing for sure what had happened to her. The problem is, an LAPD captain and commanding officer of the Robbery Homicide Division told People magazine this is not accurate. We're talking about Scott Williams. Said Celeste's body was not frozen. She was not decapitated. The whole frozen thing doesn't even make sense. Her body was in the car for weeks. Even if she had been frozen solid when she was put in the car, which there is no evidence to suggest she was, 5 or more weeks in the trunk of a car in sweltering heat in the middle of summer would not have resulted in a partially frozen body being discovered on September 8th. Basically said that she'd been dead for at least several weeks. TMZ, though, put
Okay. So she wasn't frozen or decapitated. Okay. Alright. Still fucked up what happened to her, but see, I'm getting mixed stories. Like on TikTok, I remember when this was blowing up everywhere. They was talking about her head did get decapitated, but I wasn't sure. And then now I'm seeing the official news saying it, but now is that's not the case. It's not the case, I guess. Cause I don't like believing everything on TikTok. I ain't gonna hold you, cause TikTok they be lying. So that's why I was shocked, cause I dead ass thought that happened, but
pushed back on this. They doubled down that their source connected to the LA County Medical Examiner's office insists Celeste's body was partially frozen, and even highlighted that there's one document from the ME's office that apparently reads the decedent was not live scanned due to waterlogged fingers. That their sources say the ME may not be able to officially determine the cause or manner of death because of the state of Celeste's body. And TMZ explained that there's this ongoing tension between the ME's office and the LAPD that goes beyond just this case. It's been problematic apparently for years. We'll get into this as well. But something's wrong here. Something's off. There's a miscommunication, right? I will tell you this. The Robbery Homicide Division released a statement a few days
so wait, so look. There's one side saying her body was frozen and she was decapitated, and there's another side saying she wasn't. You're lying. So basically, much these both sides are clashing for some reason. Like he said, it's been happening for years. But do they not understand somebody died? Like, y'all gotta put y'all differences aside and really look at the problem. Stop giving us misdirection. You telling us one thing while other people while the other side is telling us another. You can't do that. Can't do that, bro. Come on, bro.
Ago, and we haven't talked about this yet. It said the following, quote, "The Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD, is aware of the recent stories posted by various media outlets about the David Celeste Rivas investigation and would like to dispel some misinformation contained in their reporting. The body of Celeste Rivas was not frozen when it was discovered on September 8th, 2025. She had not been decapitated. We have evidence that David traveled to the Santa Barbara area sometime during the spring of 2025. The reason for that trip is still under investigation, and we've drawn no conclusions at this point about the relevance of the trip to this case. As far as the court order, the LAPD sought to seal the records of the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's investigation into Celeste Rivas' death. That order was sought only to ensure detectives from Robbery Homicide Division learned of important information surrounding her death before the media and the public. The order was not sought to undermine transparency. No other information will be provided at this time." And by the way, regarding that sealing, we talked about this in a prior sidebar, but the ME had received a court order sought by the LAPD to place a security hold on any information being released from the ME's office about Celeste's death. So no records or cause or manner of death. None of that information can be released to the public. And, as I mentioned before, the LA Times apparently reviewed this court petition seeking the security hold, and it makes reference to a grand jury number. Hence why there is now this reporting that it's possible a grand jury has been convened here. And before we even get into the grand jury aspect too, not only was there reporting that David is being considered a suspect in the case, even though the LAPD hasn't officially confirmed that. By the way, there's mixed reporting on whether he was cooperating during this investigation or not. But
Hey, that's another thing I was hearing on TikTok. Well, not on TikTok, but that's another thing they were saying. They were saying like he was being cooperating. He was cooperating during the investigation, and then like sometime like after, I think they said he wasn't cooperating no more. So once again, I don't know if it's both sides, but still, it's people saying one thing and people saying another thing, but spreading mislead information online. Why? Don't do that. Cause like I genuinely want to know like what's going on. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then there's people just spreading misinformation, lies.
acclaimed criminal defense attorney Mark Garagos said on his Two Angry Men podcast that a second suspect has been identified by authorities, someone who is connected to the disposal of Celeste's body, saying, quote, "They've got this thing down to a timeline that's almost down to the minute, triangulated down to the location. It's social media, cell phone, Tesla, it's other GPS tracking devices." So now we have all that, if that's true, and now we have this reporting about a grand jury proceeding. Time to bring in Nima Rahmani, former federal prosecutor, somebody that knows the ins and outs of the criminal justice system, particularly in California. Nima, thank you so much for coming on. I want to just take a step back here and explain to us what an investigative grand jury is. How is that different from our understanding of what, a typical grand jury is?
Jesse, thanks for having me. Obviously, a sad and fascinating case. And an investigative grand jury can subpoena witnesses and documents, right? That's its function. It can't return an indictment. And I think it's important for people to know that grand juries are not typically used here in California, right? Obviously, like, I'm a former federal prosecutor. We used to use them all the time. But in state courts here, they usually proceed by a complaint and a preliminary hearing. There's two ways to get to a felony jury trial: a grand jury indictment or a prelim. And DAs here, they almost always proceed using a complaint and a prelim. So why aren't they doing so in this case? That's the question. I think the reason is they want to lock in some of these witnesses before the grand jury. Make sure they don't go sideways, because they're going to need some cooperators at trial in this case. And that's why the DA's office convened a grand jury. Because if you want evidence, you can probably just get a search warrant. That's much more powerful than a grand jury subpoena.
I have a lot of questions about that. So first of all, right, a preliminary hearing would be public. Like, I'm not saying necessarily cameras, but reporters would be in there. It's open to the public. We would know what the evidence is against defendants. Grand jury proceedings are secret, right? So you make a good point about that. Why would they want to keep it secret? Is it, you mentioned before, but is it also they don't want to tip somebody off? They don't want the public, they don't want potential suspects, potential defendants to know what they may or may not have right now? And by the way, defense attorneys wouldn't know about a grant. They can't present evidence. They can't present a defense argument. So they're just waiting to see what comes back. So is that also one of the reasons this could be secret? I mean, maybe secret, we're reporting about.
If you or a loved one were at Northwell Sleep Center or STARS Rehabilitation between August 20
it.
Well, look, I mean, grand juries are supposed to be secret. There are leaks all the time. I've been somewhat critical of this case. I live and work in Los Angeles.
Yo, Chad, what you think about this case, bro? This case is like a crazy case of webs and what's going on. It's just a bunch of craziness in general. I don't even know what to think about it. I'm not gonna lie with y'all. I don't know what to think about it. It's just like, but my eyes watering, Mud. I ain't gonna hold you, Muddy. I don't like, bro. Get on my chat, Mud. I don't like chat. When I tell you, like, I like learning about things, but when it's like real life things, like you gotta really like put it into perspective and be like, hold on, this is a real life person who died. This is somebody like real, like me. You see, like, look, I'm touching things, I'm talking, and then one day I'm gonna die. One day I'm gonna be dead. Like, that's just, see, I don't like think about death. But look, I have to use that as an example to like really make myself realize like life is precious, yo. So when I'm like watching like real life cases about real life things, like it just like, yo, sometimes it makes me cry, son. Just thinking about it is just crazy to me in itself. I don't like think about nothing like that. I just like to live in a moment. I just like to live in a moment. That's all, bro. Yo, rest, rest, rest in peace to Celeste, and prayers for the family once again, bud. Let's get back to the reaction though. My bad for the rambling. My bad. I just want to know your opinion. If I post this on YouTube, what's your opinion on this? Comment down below. This is just a terrible and a horrifying case. I wouldn't even wish this on my worst enemy. I would never wish death on somebody. That's just insane to me.
And tests should have been done by now. So I don't know what's taken law enforcement so long. I don't know why they went the grand jury route, because when you take a long time, witness memories can fade, evidence can disappear, and importantly, suspects can flee. So I don't like the grand jury route, but maybe the DA's office thought, look, we have to convene this grand jury. It's supposed to be secret. I got to get these witnesses to testify now because I might lose that evidence later on.
Explain this to me, how it works, what an investigative grand jury does. Because look, a typical grand jury, right, would be presented, that would return an indictment. They're presented kind of like a streamlined case, maybe a few witnesses, maybe an investigator, maybe a victim, and they have to get a majority, right, of the grand jurors that are convened. You think there's probable cause for an indictment and return an indictment. What does an investigative grand jury do? Like, what's their day-to-day? How long are they usually convened? And what's the end result? What do they prepare at the end?
Yeah, so you're right. Typically, you go to the grand jury to get an indictment. So what does that mean? You put on your witness, almost always a law enforcement witness. Usually, it's not a witness that has anything to do with the case because the rules of evidence don't apply. They can present all sorts of hearsay evidence to the grand jury, right? You want someone that's not going to be used as impeachment later on that might say something inconsistent, how they're going to testify at trial. So you have this summary witness that talks about all the evidence in the case, present that to the grand jurors. And like you said, you just need a simple majority. Usually you have 23 grand jurors, and then you only need 12 out of those 23 to return an indictment. And the standard is low, just probable cause.
Right.
Okay, grand jury indictments in a matter of minutes. That was the function of a grand jury, to charge people. So you summarize the evidence, feed it to them in a spoon-fed way, make it easy for them to sign that true bill or the indictment. An investigative grand jury is very different. They tend to go longer because their role is to actually hear the evidence. So obviously on law and crime, we cover a lot of trials. Everyone's familiar with that question and answer format. For an investigative grand jury, it's almost like a deposition, right? You want that witness talking for a long time. So there's the prosecutor, there's a court reporter, there's a witness, and the grand jurors. That's it. There's no one else in that grand jury room. There's certainly no defendant, no defense attorney that's going to cross-examine the witness. So you want to lock in that witness like you would in a civil deposition. Now, some states do allow for depositions in criminal cases, but California is not one of them. So think of that grand jury proceeding more like a deposition than actually something that's used to return an indictment. So at the end of the investigative grand jury, they can make recommendations, but they cannot return an indictment. That has to go to a different grand jury.
So are they given at the end of the day, hey, after everything you heard, do you think there's enough to subpoena this witness? Do you think there's enough for a search warrant? And at the end of whatever their session is, they said, do you think there's enough for us to, I guess, present the evidence we have in front of a different grand jury for an indictment? Am I right about what the end of the day looks like them every day?
That's absolutely right. So they would have to go to another grand jury to get an indictment. Again, I'm not saying they would necessarily do that. And normally they would just get a complaint, an arrest warrant, and pick someone up and deal with the prelim. Getting a grand jury indictment in the state court system here is rare. It does happen, but it's rare and it's not typically done, especially in murder cases.
So let me ask you this. Is that because this is complex in a way? Why would it, are there aspects of this where you might be dealing with a confusing state of affairs, cause of death, manner of death, multiple players, high profile nature of this? Why go this alternative route? And by the way, I don't know if it's a murder investigation. There's back and forth on whether or not it's a homicide investigation. What makes this a complex death investigation?
I don't necessarily think it's that complex. Obviously, look, you have a body that was decomposing for quite some time. There's a lot of misinformation out there that might not be true. Obviously, first we heard it was dismembered, then it wasn't dismembered, then it was completely decomposed, then it wasn't, then it was frozen, but maybe it's not. So LAPD is certainly one of the most secretive when it comes to providing information. They repeatedly request any kind of Public Records Act request. Information that comes out is usually leaked. That's just kind of how they do things. They're not very transparent, unfortunately, as a law enforcement agency. And look, and maybe that's for the good when you're dealing with an investigation like this. But the reason I think this is maybe a challenging case is you got to get into the history between Celeste and David, if it was, or someone else, right? She was missing for a year and a half. We don't know why she ran away. There was some sort of romantic or sexual relationship, how she died. Was she killed? Was it an accident? Was it an overdose?
I want to talk about that. Wait, go back.
So there's a lot.
There's the stream. She said something like crazy. I forgot what it was. Chat. I'm about to find the clip. Hold on. He said something crazy. And then like he was like, oh, joking. It was like a weird like laugh, I guess. And then he ended stream. And then he has ended stream. So I don't know. We'll see. Oh, there we go, chat. Found it.
I media
trained you.
No, you didn't. That's
That's
controversial.
controversial.
It's controversial.
It's controversial.
Really good.
Really good.
There we go. You heard what she said? Of raping kids, man. Stream.
Sexual relation.
Let's get back into it though. Let's just watch it.
How she died, was she killed, was it an accident, was it an overdose? So there's a lot of questions that we don't know. All those questions, Jesse, I don't necessarily think lead us to the grand jury route. What the grand jurors are going to do to answer these questions, these are more questions for detectives and medical examiners and doctors and so forth. But again, I think what the grand jury can do is bring witnesses in, get their testimony locked down so they don't go sideways at trial. That is the advantage of a grand jury in a case like this. I think this case is going to rely a lot on cooperators, right? People that were in that inner circle, right? That knew whether it was David who had access to the front of that Tesla or it was someone else, whether they're percipient eyewitnesses. I think that's the evidence the grand jurors are hearing, witness testimony. And the DA's office is thinking, well, listen, I don't want to wait till the prelim, or I don't want to wait all the way to trial. I'm not sure how this witness will present or what they will say, or if they'll go sideways and do a 180. I want to lock them in now, and that's why I'm convening this grand
And
jury.
that's their testimony. They can't escape from that. The preliminary, by the way, would be in front of a judge to determine if there's enough probable cause to move forward. So different than a grand jury, other than the secret aspect. By the way, we talk about why there might be a grand jury. This reporting that there was a reference to a grand jury number, if I'm reading it right, in the LAPD's court petition to place a security hold on the ME. Are they right? Does that seem accurate, that there's probably a grand jury going on?
I do think there is a grand jury. And again, it goes back to LAPD, right? I mean, they want to make sure everything is secret and they put a hold on this. Typically, we've talked about it, right? There's a presumption that government records are public, right? Including an ME's report, and court filings are public. But in this particular case, they're trying to prevent that report from being released. That leads me to believe that the report is complete. The investigation should be complete or nearly complete. And the fact that LAPD is putting a hold on it, again, typical for this jurisdiction, but not typical for how other law enforcement agencies elsewhere handle these types of reports.
And to be
Okay, so what he just said basically was, I guess the case is starting to come to an end. They starting to gather evidence, getting the testimonies from everybody who was in David circle, like who knew, people who knew that he was dating Celeste and or whatnot. So like people like that. And I remember it was something like in a Discord. I forgot what it was. I think they deleted the Discord, but I remember I seen a video. It was something about Discord, like Discord chats. Yeah, but yeah, we probably only gonna react to this, and then we're gonna get to some games because after this we're gonna need some fun vibes. You know what I mean? I don't want to. You know what I'm saying? Think about this. Um, but like I said, I'm just gonna be listening. That's why I'm not talking right now. I don't want to talk over the video. I'm just gonna listen, and when I got something to say, I'm gonna just pause it. You know, say my little bit. But once again, chat, what do y'all think about this case? This case is like really bone chilling. I'm not gonna hold you. It just makes me sick to my stomach to ever think about it. And I remember when his song was blowing up on TikTok, bro. Everybody was bummed. They was like, "Yeah, this song good." And then now he's in this type of heat. It just sucks. It sucks to see for both sides. You know, he was doing good for himself. He was doing like Fortnite collabs. I know he was doing a bunch of Fortnite things. He had a bunch of um collabs he was doing with like other things, and then he was on tour at the time, right? So it was a bunch of things going on, and then but then the family finding out that they daughter is dead, and then she's hanging around this guy that I think that she barely introduced her parents to, and then she ran away, and then I don't really know like her story of why she ran away. Well, we don't know that, but I don't really know why she ran away or what caused her to run away. But it just sucks to see for both sides. You know, David at his height of his career facing all this backlash, and now if he is innocent, it's like he could never escape it. People just gonna remember him for this. But he still is a PDF. Don't forget that part. He still is a PDF. I'm not going to. I don't know if he did anything with her, but yeah. I don't know what caused them to date or how they got in contact. But yeah. it just sucks to see, crazy to see, sad to be in this situation.
Clear. We don't know exactly.
One more thing, and plus she had a bright future ahead of her. She was young. I think she was 14, right? She was 14. Like she's about my age. She's about my age when she passed, at least. So she was about my age when she passed. She has a long life ahead of her. And for it just to be taken away by this famous rap, I don't know why he would want to do that. I don't know what caused him to do that. Because he has the money, he has the riches, he has everything. He has the mansion, he has the cars, he has all the the brand deals, he has all the collabs. So I don't know what would cause him to murder somebody, per se. We don't know if it was a murder case because they're not confirming it, but I don't know what would cause him to murder somebody. But you know what I'm saying? I don't know what would cause somebody like him to do that when he at the peak of his career. He's doing good for himself. And now it's all crumbling down. And then for her side, it's just like she passed, the family's very sick, and now they find out the daughter is dead, and it's just a bunch of things.
How long, if this grand jury does exist, how long it's been impaneled for, right? There's been reporting that since mid-November. Could be before that. If I were to tell you that, there was reporting that there was a search warrant of the house that David was staying at back in September where certain material was reportedly seized, this rental property, and this rental property was near the Tesla, that doesn't necessarily mean that search warrant was issued by this grand jury, right? That it could have been law enforcement. It could be separate, right? So even though there were developments in this case, or seeming developments, doesn't mean it was coming from the grand jury. It means it was maybe from law enforcement.
I believe that's right, Jesse. And
Okay.
there was reporting that law enforcement executed those search warrants of the home in September. The owner of the home talked to the press and said that there were cameras. So I assume that video information was downloaded as well. Obviously, we know Teslas have plenty of videos, potentially treasure trove of electronic evidence in this case, right? I mean, these were young people. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of text messages and the like. So I'm sure we're going to see a lot of evidence in.
That's a big part. The text evidence, and then the if he did murder her, he probably murdered her. I don't want to say it like in a rude, like you can't say it without sounding disrespectful or you know what I'm saying. But if he was to murder her, I don't know where she died at or how she got in the car. I don't know if she was moved into the car or if anything, but if she was to die in a Tesla, he probably killed her in the dumbest place he could. Because, Teslas has a lot of cameras, and if they could somehow get hold of the messages, I feel like he would be done for. And then there's a lot of factors like the cameras, like he brought up and all the bunch of stuff.
A case like this.
Now, can two things be true at once? Can I say, hey, there's an investigative grand jury being impaneled with the idea of potentially another grand jury being impaneled that would indict someone in connection with Celeste's death or disposal of her body, and at the same time, LAPD allegedly telling TMZ that there's no arrest that's imminent?
That's all potentially true. And again, LAPD first said that David wasn't a suspect, then that he was a suspect. And again, this is all reporting to TMZ and local media outlets.
Yeah, and they haven't come out, LAPD, and officially said he's a suspect, right?
I think what you want about TMZ, they really have their pulse on things here in Los Angeles. I can give you some inside baseball. Look, you know me, I do a lot of TV. I do TMZ all the time. And sometimes I'll file documents in court here in LA County, and TMZ will get a copy of it before I get my own conformed copy back. I mean, that's how on top of it they are. And we do, celebrity filings and the like. So they've broken huge news here. Kobe Bryant's death, they were the first to report that information. So I wouldn't necessarily think, hey, TMZ's reporting it. It's not true. It may very well be true. They have a lot of sources here in LA. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're reporting that David is a suspect is true.
By the way, what is going on with this relationship between the ME and the LAPD? This back and forth about whether or not Celeste's body was frozen or decapitated. I said this when I first was reporting TMZ's reporting. I feel terrible for the family that they have to hear these details, whether they're true or not. But this idea of this tension between, it seems there's something going on here. In your experience, is there a strained relationship? Does it explain why we're seeing, I don't know, miscommunication, two different ideas about what happened to her?
Yeah, I mean, it is an issue. Just so folks understand, LAPD, obviously, they are employed by the city of Los Angeles. The ME, that is a county employee, also Los Angeles as well. So they don't necessarily work for the same government agency. I don't know if the relationship is necessarily strained, but I could tell you, living here, there's a lot of pressure. Look, people think that Los Angeles, it's a violent city. Criminals run amok. And the fact that you have this young girl that was missing for so long, then her body was found in a vehicle and no arrest has been made. It seems like at a minimum, right, someone tampered with the body, right? They were an accessory after the fact, or there was some sort of crime committed with respect to her body, even if the death was accidental. And of course, there's all sorts of potential other crimes. We don't know if kidnapping, there's statutory rape, there's sex trafficking, obviously murder. Again, I'm not accusing anyone, but it's surprising that now 2.5, almost 3 months have passed, and not a single person has been arrested for this young girl's death. And a lot of people that are watching, a lot of people that are living here, they're upset. And they think that law enforcement, whether they're overwhelmed, they're just not getting the job done. So I think there is that political pressure on this case, both with respect to LAPD and the ME as well. People want answers, and justifiably so, especially the victim's family in this case.
100%. And to go back to something that you mentioned as well, this shouldn't put undue pressure on law enforcement. They have to get it right. They have to get it right in every case. But I mean, particularly a high-profile case like this, where there are a lot of eyeballs on a lot of expectations. But this security hold that LAPD got on the ME's office, I'm curious your thoughts on this too. I mentioned before, but I didn't read the release that came out from the ME's office when this sealing issue happened. So according to a release from authorities, it says, quote, at 10:54 a.m. on Friday, November 21st, the County of Los Angeles Department of Medical Examiner Department received a court order initiated by the Los Angeles Police Department to place a security hold on medical examiner case number 2025-14252, Celeste Rivas Hernandez. No records or details associated with the case, including the cause and manner of death, and medical examiner report can be released or posted on the website until further notice. The department's mission is to have full transparency with the community by providing information about our cases to empower people to make changes that save lives. Since becoming the department head, I've worked on eradicating the practice of placing security holds on medical examiner cases simply by law enforcement request. The practice of security holds is virtually unheard of in other counties and has not been proven to improve outcomes in the legal system. We are dedicated to serving our community with full transparency. However, the law precludes us from doing so while the court order remains in this case. The department previously received a request for security hold from the LAPD on this case on September 15th, 2025. So that's 7 days, by the way, after Celeste's body was found, which was denied due to insufficient justification to warrant the hold. The department understands the public's interest in this case and remains committed to transparency when possible. Information will be made available once the court order is lifted. For questions about the order, the court order, timeline, and the law enforcement investigation into this death, you can contact the LAPD. Now, I talked about that statement on a previous sidebar, Nima, but I didn't speak to you about it. Your analysis, your experience in terms of these court orders, these security holds, them being petitioned for, them being granted, and why you might see something like this.
Yeah, again, this is par for the course for LAPD. And again, I used to work for the city of Los Angeles. In addition to being a former federal prosecutor, I was the enforcement director at the LA City Ethics Commission at the top 2 floors of City Hall. And we oversaw all the employees of the city of LA, from the mayor on down. And when it comes to different types of, here in California, it's a Public Records Act request. Obviously, the federal system is a FOIA request. LAPD is very aggressive when asserting the law enforcement privilege, right? So there is a presumption that these documents are public, but it can be the Epstein files, it can be the Celeste Rivas case. If it's an active investigation.
Yo, I ain't gonna do what is What is the FD files? Like, I ain't gonna hold you. I don't even know what that means. I don't know what that is. I just be seeing a lot of niggas on TikTok saying it. And I just heard him bring it up, so I'm gonna have to do my research real quick. Chat, give me a second. I know it was like a leak or something. F F S F D. Oh yeah. Epstein files refer to thousands of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein criminal investigations, revealing details about his insolent, in, insolent activities, connections, and the intensive network he operated. Image. Release the file. We might have to look into that, chat. Might have to watch some videos on that.
We've all heard that term, active investigation. That is an exception to a Public Records Act request. And that's what the LAPD is asserting to try to keep that report confidential. Now, certainly the county and the Emmy, they feel differently. They feel that the documents should be made public. That's typically how it's done in other jurisdictions, right? We regularly get these autopsy reports. Sometimes the family will file different motions to keep it secret. We saw it in the, for instance, the Bob Saget case and other cases. Well, it's the victim's family that's trying to preserve their privacy. But here it's LAPD, it's law enforcement that's doing it, and it's pretty typical for how they do business.
Now, Nima, before I let you go, I got to ask you the fact that LAPD made mention of this Santa Barbara trip. TMZ had reported this apparent trip that David took. You know, they reported that it was in the spring. People have speculated, okay, was that the timeline when maybe Celeste died or her body was disposed? We don't know for sure. The fact the LAPD has now mentioned the Santa Barbara trip, confirming something of interest to them. They didn't have to say it. They mentioned it. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's important, right? Obviously, Celeste Rivas was not from Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara is in the complete opposite direction for folks that don't know Southern California. It's a couple hours away from Los Angeles, where David lived, and apparently where Celeste Rivas was. So,
All right, so this can't be a coincidence. I'm gonna be honest with you. If she somehow got all the way from where she was to where he was, this can't just be a coincidence where like when he mentioned earlier, I don't know if y'all heard or remember, just rewind the video if this is going on. Oh, this part, yeah, this going on YouTube. But yeah, just rewind the video if y'all didn't hear what he heard. I mean, just rewind the video if y'all didn't hear what he said. What he said was, we don't know if this is a sex trafficking case or a murder case or homicide or whatever. I know for a fact this can't be a sex trafficking case. It has to be like, y'all know, like some things where the girls be running off to be with their boyfriends. I think it's like one of those cases because there's no way she could have ended up all the way over there, all the way to where he is by herself. So it's either like he picked her up or something, or like met her somewhere and then got her to LA, and then they just been chilling ever since. Oh, I don't know what, but this definitely, this just brought me a lot of attention to this dude. He has a major role. We all know that, but to me, I feel like this is just confirming that he did it. Like, how does she get all the way? Like he said, is all the way across there. This is L.A. This is where she at right here. She got all the way to L.A. somehow. So she obviously somebody obviously brung her to LA because she couldn't have did that by herself. There's no way. At the age of 14, there's no way you know how to do that. So to me, this feel like confirmation that he did it or he had help doing it or he helped somebody. Like I don't know. Cause obviously I remember it was like some speculations about him being framed or it was him, oh, he was at tour. But that doesn't prove anything to me. So this case is definitely like a weird case. This is a weird case.
Look, it's important. I don't know. Sometimes you throw that out there, hoping that people will come forward. Maybe they saw them. There's a lot of people who are watching, a lot of social media detectives in a case like this since the very
Yeah.
beginning. People have seen them together. So I wouldn't be surprised that there's a specific law enforcement reason why they put it out there, hoping witnesses come forward with either video or other eyewitness testimony, maybe seeing those two together. Maybe, just maybe, that's the last time she was alive.
Nima, I really can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on and trying to explain this to us, because this can get complicated, this can get confusing. There is this mixed information, trying to make sense of it. We're lucky to have you. Nima Rahmani, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Of course, Jesse, thanks for having me. Hopefully, Celeste Rivas and her family get the justice they deserve very soon.
Absolutely. And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always,
Alright, chat. Let's get on some games because let's lighten up the mood. Once again, all prayers goes out to the family. RIP to Celeste. It's just a fucked up case. Let's get on some